Odlično, malo otvoriti. Samo pazite na mikrofon. Imate tu. Koja je vaša? Who is in charge to say yes? Timer started and Darko waving his hand, so I think we are ready to start. Dear participants, good afternoon and welcome to the panel Election Registration and Manipulations in the Southeast Europe region. So, as title suggests, we will discuss electoral manipulations, elections in general, voter migrations, cross-border transfer of the voters. But having in mind that all these phenomena are closely linked to wider regional dynamics, we will basically talk about everything related to the Western Balkan region and Southeast Europe or Southeast Europe region. As we all know, there are a lot of open issues between the countries in the region, ranging from border demarcation, identity issues, unresolved war legacies. And the thing is, very often these issues are misused or instrumentalized by political elites in the region. And in the same time, as we all know, good neighborly relations are conditio sine qua non for accession process of all countries in the region. So basically, we will discuss exactly those issues, and we do have great panel today with us to help us unpack those issues, and I will shortly introduce the panel. So today with us, Milica Kovačević, Program Director of the Center for Democratic Transition, CDT, in Podgorica, Montenegro. Welcome, Milica. Sanja Despot, Editor-in-Chief of Faktograf HR, Croatia first fact-checking platform. Welcome, Sanja. Also with us today is Agon Malici from Kosovo, non-resident senior fellow with Atlantic Council Europe Center. And Mr. Adnan Huskić from Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina, he's a professor at Sarajevo School for Science and Technology, if I'm not mistaken. Adnan, it's always challenging for me to say it properly. Pavle Dimitrijević, actually from CERTA, couldn't make it. He had a small accident, but that means that we will have more time to discuss. Joke aside, and let me start with Milica. Milica, perhaps we could start with a broader regional perspective. Given CDT recent work on the subject related to unresolved bilateral dispute, but also related to voter migrations, so if you could take us through the main findings of your recent work, what are the conclusions and how the situation looks like right now?
Thank you. Several times already during the Point Conference, the IGNITA initiative was presented, and CDT is one of the partners on that regional initiatives, and we, inspired by what's happening in Montenegro, we decided to turn a little light on the problem of unresolved regional bilateral disputes that are affecting European integration path of all our countries. You know that Montenegro, according to Brussels, is approaching to the membership, and In last several years, bilateral dispute with Croatia became one of the issues that has potential to endanger that timeline, I would say, not the goal itself, which is a dispute that for many years in Montenegro at least was considered, not considered a problem. So that everyone was aware that there is the border dispute, but actually it wasn't creating problem in a cooperation between countries. Croatia was Montenegro's best friend, the biggest supporter on a European path. And then we looked at, in recent years, all EU documents are clearly saying like no import of bilateral disputes in the EU. You have to solve everything and then you come in. And then we decided to do the mapping and realize that there is plenty of problems. Some of them are visible, are discussed, are under negotiations, are creating problems. Some of them are being dormant, but it doesn't mean that in a moment when some country gets closer to some integration, these disputes come out. Main problem, and I will try to end with that, is so EU wants you not to import the dispute, but there is no definition or clear agreement on what constitutes a dispute. So what is a dispute that cannot be imported? There are things that, like border is always, because you are becoming a member of a bigger federation, so you need a border. Minority rights were always, because they are part of the Copenhagen criteria. But identity issues, disputes about history, many problems of war past, war legacy that we have in these regions were not part of the acquis. However, now are becoming. With the case of Bulgaria and North Macedonia, it appears that one can introduce debate on how do you define your language or your ethnicity or how you interpret your history. One big problem that is especially connected also to the Western Balkans, that is now visible in many states, is the mobilization of voters, influence on elections. Everyone is talking about malign foreign influences. Everyone is talking about FIMI. We speak the same language, or we speak in the region two big languages. We have political, cultural, other connections, and our political elites have ability to influence the electorate in neighboring countries. Tomorrow, if Montenegro becomes a member of European Union, with this situation, we are under a risk that, for example, Bosnia or Serbia can influence who will be Montenegrin MPs in the European Parliament, or even to have their own representatives in there.
Yes, thank you, Milice. I mean, it's interesting for us to follow what's going on with Montenegro in hope that we will follow your path very soon, but we never know. Now let's move to Sanja. Sanja, you recently published a paper on relations between Montenegro.
Work has been going on, we don't know actually. There are some negotiations but we don't really know whether it's just a public speech, did they receive any result, and what is going on. Last week there was a EU summit in Tivat, and our Prime Minister Andrej Plenković mentioned 8 unresolved questions, and I should say that most of them are there from 90s, and we are getting some new ones, like for example this ship Jadran, training ship that is such a big issue. It's an old ship built in the beginning of the last century, and it was stationed in Split, and it was considered like it was in Yugoslavia, but it was considered like it belongs to Split. But at 1990, when dissolution came, it was in Tivat, so Montenegro thinks it's, kind of succession between Montenegro and Serbia, left it in Tivat. Why am I mentioning it? To show how absurd can some things be. We are talking here about Montenegro entering European Union, and one of the preconditions are, one old ship. So there are difficult questions like border issue, as everywhere. There are difficult questions considering war crimes and missing people, and it's not so easy to really get over it. But there are some, like this mentioned ship, and then there is this name of the swimming pool in Kotar, which is named after a war criminal, and Croatia insists that it should be changed. So I don't know what to say. Basically, I think that at the end, Croatia will support Montenegro and integration into European Union because it's in Croatia's interest. But right now, there are, using all this stuff to really have it for domestic purposes in Croatia and also in Montenegro. So if that is the answer on your question.
Maybe we can, that's what I want to
Yeah,
ask Milica, just a brief perception on situation with regard to relationship with Croatia in Montenegro.
Yeah,
From
it's just
different-
I wanted to make sure that we don't miss the part of Montenegro. So there is this. There are like two major things in the relations. The first one is that Montenegro was in 90s aggressor and attacked Croatia, and then your negotiation position even about some ship drastically changes, and you should, if the civil society would decide, that would be resolved long ago in some friendly manner. Then there is this realistic border dispute, but with a transitional regime that functions perfectly for over 20 years, because at the time there was a goodwill to solve that, not to have problem on that border. But in Montenegro, it's not just the fact that we are now nearing European Union, it's also the change of it's the political shift that happened in the country. So for example, the swimming pool that is named after the war criminal, it's recent thing, and it's a new problem. It is created a couple of years ago where the new majority already understanding that we will have to deal with more important issues with Croatia, adds another problem on this. Or Jadran ship, which all of a sudden Montenegrin ship that was taking during the war under most benevolent that I can say are shady circumstances. My opinion is even worse about that. It cannot be the symbol. So you're making that a symbol and you are creating a problem that is very difficult to resolve. Also in Montenegro there is huge campaign that depicts Croatia, modern day Croatia, as a Nazi Ustaše state. That narrative is making it really hard for any government that is to close the deal because it is presented as collaboration. And I'm coming to the point, sorry for being excessive, most of this is really much used in Montenegro for internal political mobilization. For political purposes, no one serious thinks that Croatia actually is enemy to Montenegro. If nothing, then it was always, Croatia always expressed as their first priority of foreign policy is actually closing that border and having that sea and even that disputed border on the sea as European Union sea, as Mare Nostrum.
Thank you. And, I think that also relations between Montenegro and Serbia are quite intensive these days, but I will ask you that in second round. Now let's move to Kosovo. Kosovo is having quite intensive period with elections in just a bit more than a year, 3 election cycles.
4 if you count local.
4 if you count local, yes. Yes, exactly. What's happening with elections in Kosovo? Agor, could you please give us more details? And also, to what extent regional relations are a relevant topic during elections and during the pre-election campaign and post-election debate, in particular relations with Serbia?
Yeah. First, I'd just like to note that, I'm affiliated with the Atlantic Council as a non-resident fellow, but I'm speaking here on my personal capacity. I have to say that so that I can,
You will not be
so that I can be more free.
As Atlantic
Yeah.
Council fellow.
And secondly, since we're talking about good neighborly relations and the need for solidarity between democratic actors in conference themes about political accountability, I'd just like to invite the audience and everyone to follow and support what's happening in Albania, which is, I think, one of the most important developments in the region, this Flamingo revolution. I think it needs a bit more regional support. Going back to the question, yes, elections in Kosovo, or as we call them now, the weekend, because we seem to have them every Sunday, are a reflection of mostly domestic developments, a huge societal polarization, which is about domestic governance, first and foremost, but also about, I would say, how to resolve this dispute with Serbia. There's a fundamental difference between the camps on how to do that. I think that what's happening regionally is that this dialogue that the EU is mediating, which was supposed to be a platform to bring us both countries into the EU, is now being abused by the governments in both countries. Sort of the dialogue has become a platform to pretend internationally that you're constructive, but also project domestically that you are a patriot. I think there's a very delicate dance happening between the leaderships in two countries. I wouldn't say it's collusion, but there's a mutual interest in keeping the tensions high. Obviously, Serbia's aggressive intents are visible, of which, Banska attack proved that. Serbia is highly active domestically in Kosovo's politics through a political party, the Serbian List, which it controls, using the instruments that are given to protect Serbian non-majority rights in Kosovo, the constitutional rights protections. It has leverage over what happens domestically in Kosovo, which creates a lot of frustration within Kosovo. But I would add that there's a mutual benefit to the situation from the current government in Kosovo, and the Prime Minister in particular, who is enjoying the situation because, is amplifying this threat even further. To undermine accountability domestically, it's very beneficial to put this Serbia threat very high on the agenda, because then you get to label civil society as traitors. There was even an attempt in the middle of a crisis in the north a couple of years ago to shut down a private TV channel, saying that they are owned by Serbia interests. So there is a benefit to these tensions domestically in Kosovo. I think that if you do a census right now in Kosovo, 80% of the people would have at one point in their life been called a Serbian agent, because it goes both ways. The opposition is calling Kurti pro-Serbia, Kurti is calling the opposition, you're pro-Serbia. Everybody seems to be working for Serbia. It's so overwhelming as a topic. And it's a very destabilized sort of environment. And I think one of the reasons why we're having frequent elections is the lack of consensus domestically on how to resolve this. There is an agreement which is supposed to be there, the Ohrid Agreement, which nobody really thinks to believe it exists, neither in Serbia nor in Kosovo. There is an inability to agree to any compromise. So if you have permanent crisis, you don't have to deal with international pressure related to it. I feel that this has something to do with the fact that why we have frequent elections and a desire to continue just sort of, we have an acting government for most of the past 2 years. This is a very toxic environment, which I think is also providing a very fertile ground for external actors to come in, and both in Serbia and in Kosovo, to preserve the status quo, and to use these, I would call KGB methods of reflexive control, to intervene in particular moments, to inflame tensions, to provoke reactions that undermine any progress in this, I would call the mother of bilateral disputes in the region right now, because it's not holding Kosovo and Serbia back, it's holding the entire region back. So yeah, I end my intervention here, the first one, and hopefully we can discuss other points going forward.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for mentioning Flamingo Revolution in Albania. I think we all support colleagues in Albania. It is very important. think happening there. I think we in Bosnia do have similar situations, but unfortunately still not revolution. And with saying that, now I will ask Mr. Huskic, last but not least, to update us with situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia and Herzegovina is particularly sensitive to regional development, if I may say so. So how do you see regional political dynamics and unresolved dispute influence situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina? And to what extent do you think that those issues related to voter migration, registrations affect situation in the country?
Okay, thank you, Sergio. Hello.
Please, bello prima.
Okay,
Better.
good. Yeah, thank you, Sergio. I was hoping that I will speak after Serbia, so that things will get will be easier to put into context. But Pavle is not here. Yes, I mean, you know, listening to all of you talking about whether you should give up a ship and then give it to Croatia back, and sitting in between two countries where we are geographically wedged between, there are a number of unresolved issues here. And I think that it was when the European Union, understandably so, decided to keep, you know, by learning effectively by every single wave of enlargement, a new set of problems, and to try to externalize the resolution of these problems, or to put them as a conditionality element to those coming in. This makes the situation particularly difficult for all the countries that are latecomers to this process, and basically we have, especially when it comes to, I would say, Kosovo and Bosnia, here, very, very difficult task. But I think at the same time, you see, this perspective, the European Union's membership perspective, is so distant in Bosnia that we are not really, truly. I mean, on one hand side, I actually envy this discussion, you know, talking about the ship, you know, and, you know, there's this dispute and we should talk about this, because we don't really, I don't know, talk about those things, right? I mean, there are a number of issues. We don't have a defined border neither with Croatia nor with Serbia. We do with Montenegro, surprisingly so, because that was your precondition, by the way. We have a number of issues which make actually the country quite schizophrenic. You know, we have elections in October this year, and I will talk about you know, the voters and the registration lists. But right now, while we speak, there is a discussion on the appointment of the High Representative for Bosnia, which is thanks to the fact that the Western consensus of the international community, thanks to the rogue administration in the US, is no longer there, is now a subject of, you know, something that could very well turn into a complete disaster. And this has nothing to do with us. Nothing to do with us. You know, we as the citizens of this country have absolutely no say in what's happening there. So this is one part. This is why I say, you know, it's so schizophrenic to even talk about it. On one hand side, you have this, right? And this actually gives you an idea just how open to external influences Bosnia is. And at the same time, we have a situation where we're actually preparing for the elections, knowing that, you know, we will have new technologies at the elections, which will, at least to some extent, offset a number of issues we're having with especially the integrity of the electoral process. But you know, and I have to say this quite honestly, we are okay with this position, right? We understand that in the eyes of two neighboring countries, not necessarily the people of these countries, but we are seen as a country for spare parts. It's like, you know the room in your apartment which is really small, and, you know, the kids vacated or whatever, then you just throw everything there, right? And then keep the rest of your apartment tidy. And I think that this is actually what's happening with us. It's been happening for quite a long time, both for Serbia and for Croatia, unfortunately. We have a weird situation where Croats living in Bosnia are at the same time citizens of Croatia, which means in the European Union, citizens of European Union. who also vote the elections in Croatia. This was previously much more significant in terms of their influence on the political dynamics in Croatia, but it changed. It was kind of toned down a little bit. Serbia is in an equally weird situation because we are actually busing people for the elections to Serbia. So, you know, the current president of Serbia, the last elections, I think, were the local elections. Not we, but their peers from Bosnia were basically busing people there to vote at the Serbian elections. This happens in other directions, so it happens vice versa too. So it's, I mean, I wish I could say, let's have a look at all the problems we're having as a country, you know, let's see what we can do about those, you know, where are the elements that we can change, you know, but we are so reliant on what's happening in the region. We are so reliant on what's happening in the neighboring countries. You know what's the best indicator of this? You can ask around on the people, everybody knows pretty much anything there is to know about the politics in the neighboring countries. Do the same in the neighboring countries. Ask people, they know nothing about Bosnia. I mean, because we need to know these things. So, you know, whatever discussion we're having on, you know, where this is going to go, how this is going to go, I think that, you know, we are so profoundly reliant on the regional stability, and the regional stability is this weird stability we're enjoying. You know, it's not something that you can, you know, probably consider to be something that will last a long time, but at the same time also open in a weird way, almost like an early warning indicator to the changes in the international climate. We saw these things, you know, what we're feeling on the global scale, we saw it relatively early on. We saw the first split between the West and Russia. We saw all of this happen in Bosnia. We saw it in the Peace Implementation Council. We saw it with the international presence here. It spilled over into our situation, into Bosnia as well. And our political actors were rational enough to use and abuse this situation, I would say, quite effectively. But so it's not, you know, this is not about internationalization of our conflict, but on the other side it is to some extent. But we also saw the split with the first Trump administration and now the second Trump administration, which is like the weirdest possible thing that is happening in the sense. And now we are, you know, this is actually quite difficult because we are fundamentally dependent on this thing, right? Stability on the global scale and regionally. So, you know, whatever happens, we feel it, and there is absolutely nothing we can do about it. Nothing, really. So I will stop here.
Many thanks, Anton. Yes, Bosnia and Herzegovina is quite specific case, and yeah, very often we can see many regional issues here that are having reflections here in Bosnia and Herzegovina. But before I open the floor for your questions, I would like to go back to Milica and ask, as I promised, regarding relations with Serbia. We have seen recently during Tivat summit something quite strange. It happened even for regional standards, quite strange. And I think that is an illustrative example related to relations between Croatia and Montenegro. To what extent do you see that Serbia trying to influence Montenegro accession path in that regard?
When you look at the paper, we don't, we resolved the border with Bosnia and Herzegovina, with Kosovo, the resolved border with Albania. We have this problem with Serbia. We don't have, there is no border dispute, but there is also not agreement on the border. There is no official document because we have agreement with Kosovo. So Serbia doesn't want to have that agreement because they consider that their border. I just wanted to reflect on the fact that Kosovo is mother of the problems and is often the perspective through which the European Union looks at all the bilateral disputes. And that's it's often wrong perspective because this status dispute is not to be compared with anything else that is going on. So between Montenegro and Serbia, we are completely in the zone of symbols, of identity, and what you witnessed last week in Tibet and what we are witnessing for years now, it's on the level of the current political elites in both countries. Serbia being a strong regional player, always having dominant role in dictating that dynamic. It would be easy to blame it all on Aleksandar Vučić, Tibet, and the entire approach and the crazy things. It's solely on him, but there is also something.
Maybe you can briefly explain what really happened during that summit, because maybe people are not.
So Montenegro was hosting a summit in Tibet, which was actually a stage to celebrate Montenegro's accession to the European Union. Coming from civil society, I hated it completely, entirely, because all about it was to say Montenegro is great, be good. And night before that, we learned through the media that one charter flight from Belgrade with 97 men was stopped. They were stopped at Tivat airport and then expelled from the country, returned to Belgrade. Our police published the names and photos really say more than words, because that
more than 1,000 words.
Whoever saw the photos doesn't need this explanation, but basically then there was no one actually thought that that group of people would be able to create a security incidents on such high level summit with highest levels of protection. But the debate was, were they coming for Vučić to find an excuse not to come? Or why were they coming? And then Aleksandar Vučić said that in front of the media, that they were sent by someone in his political party so that he feels more welcome and loved. And entire story is about feeling more welcome than loved. And he even returned to Serbia complaining that he stayed hungry in Montenegro because we are eating European food. Kačamak was European food, so I don't know what to say. That's him. And this is really like, this is only as a joke, because it's one persona and one politics, but generally, and it's in official documents of Serbia, so their position towards the region, Montenegro included, no matter who is in power, has some patronizing moments towards Bosnia and Kosovo in different ways, and of course Montenegro. And in that setup, it's funny how it annoys government in Serbia any progress that Montenegro makes, and in that setup, Montenegro is not your real competition, because they are small player, they are playing in smaller leagues, and how all of a sudden that country is becoming better than you, and how do you explain that to your electorate? So this was not even meant for Montenegro. The Tivat event was meant for the audiences in Serbia. What is more important is that besides these performances and little plays, we do have, especially when it comes to elections, permanent meddling of Serbia in Montenegrin relations. It was more popular in recent years to speak about Russia influence, to speak about Chinese influence, but political Serbian influence through ownership over the media, to control over the digital media, through access through our shared language that we all speak, to direct support to political parties, to direct support to Serbian world NGOs and groups, to economic presence and investment. This is something that is well analyzed, well recognized, even including this organized voter migration and constant effort to have more influence on the outcome of Montenegrin elections. That will not stop even if we, in this great scenario, become members of the EU. This is something that stays, and that is why we also, not like Bosnia, but the codependency in the region is not unique for Bosnia. We actually, to be prosperous and happy, we need everyone in the European Union, because we are so interconnected.
Thank you, and we will open. Will be open discussion for your questions. But before that, I would like to ask Sanja regarding relation between Croatia and Bosnia. Another very interesting question, and we have seen many recent things related to that. Recent conference organized by a right-wing activist in Zagreb caused a lot of concern here in Sarajevo, a lot of reactions, I would say, here in Sarajevo. We also heard from Domovinski pokret ideas how things should be rearranged in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So what would be your take and how it looks like from Zagreb?
Yes. As a follow-up on Bosnia as a spare room, yes, last week, I think it was last week, we had two initiatives. One came from Prime Minister Plenković, who said that maybe Croatia should go and change constitution back to situation that was before 2010, when people living abroad, Croatian citizens living abroad, had 12 representatives in the parliament, which was at the time like 10% of the whole lower part of the parliament. It changed, and now we have always 3 representatives, and they are all mainly voted in Bosnia, and they are always HDZ, always, no one else. That initiative cannot pass because they need 2/3 yes, majority, and the opposition is not for that because they are always HDZ. And the other initiative you mentioned, Domovinski pokret, which is right-wing party that is in a leading coalition, a ruling coalition, altogether with HDZ, and they are together because HDZ didn't have enough votes to form a government on the last elections, but they are not really cooperating. HDZ moved to the right because of them, but Domovinski pokret has its own initiatives, like this one for Bosnia. So basically they said, we have Croats in Bosnia have a big problem because they cannot vote for their own representative in the presidency of Bosnia, because Bosniaks always seems to elect instead of Croats the member of the presidency, and it's a big problem for Croats in Bosnia. So the best solution would be if Croats can have their own constituency, meaning that Croats can vote for Croats and nobody else for the presidency. Prime Minister was, it seems, took by surprise, and probably, I mean, we are waiting for the declaration, for the text of declaration and document. They said they're going to make it in 2 weeks' time. It's like beginning of next week. Maybe now, when they don't have HDZ support for this, maybe they will give up, and maybe they will just proceed. So we'll see what happens. But what's more interesting is that because there's such that move was surprising, we all think that maybe we will have early elections in Croatia because they obviously want to re-establish their image, because they are swollen now by HDZ and they are on 2 to 3% in service. So they are trying to build their image again, and of course they are building it with Bosnia and Bosnian Croats, like it's always the case.
Thank you. And now I would like to ask you if you do have questions, comments, ideas how to improve bilateral relations or situation in the region in general. So we have no it seems that sorry. Yes, we do have a question here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Edina Osmanovic, a young European ambassador from Montenegro, and this is a topic which is close to me and to my heart. I have a question for Milica Kovačević, because you mentioned the EU Western Balkan Summit, which happened in Tivat. And from a perspective of a young person who's living in Montenegro, there were really positive messages from European parliamentarians and officials who said that it's very positive that whenever Montenegro gets to be the next member state, that's actually going to be positive for the whole region, not only for Montenegro. So I'm just interested because the next year, in 2027, we will have election in Montenegro. And do you believe that one criminal, such as Miloš Medenica, who's currently shaping the political stage not only in Montenegro, but we saw in Serbia as well, do you think that will actually affect our elections in Montenegro and the current political forces and elites that are leading our country? And do you think that could actually slow our accession into the EU, or you think that that doesn't matter, that actually EU wants us and we will be part of European Union no matter our internal conflicts and problems we're having? Thank you.
I was a huge believer in merit-based system, and I was for years desperately reading benchmarks and analyzing, and I was really annoyed how we are misinterpreting benchmarks. And these last 2 years got me to the point that it's completely not on us, because everything that you are mentioning, all the problems that we have them because we are right now staging the reforms. So we are producing papers, we are sending very bad quality, even the papers, the legislation. And there is this agreement on the level of European Union that whatever we do is welcomed with these great words, that everything is great, we congratulate, bravo Montenegro, perfect law, good job, you elected a judge, bravo. And this is like from the perspective of civil society what we are seeing, and yes, the messages were like that, and this is the messages that are received constantly, and there is no reason to doubt these messages because no one is saying anything else to my knowledge right now. And it will be good for Montenegro, it will be good for the image of the EU. I don't know whether it will be good for the entire region, because I don't think that Montenegrin membership is any of a promise of anything else, of some speed up for anyone else. I'm not clear about that. For the things that you mentioned about next elections, we haven't done electoral reform. This is still written as one of the missing things that Montenegro should do. This is like one of very few criticism in the non-paper that was just sent to Montenegrin government. We still have completely analog electoral law that doesn't recognize digital media or digital campaign at all. There is no regulation. Digital media are not regulated. Campaign is still regulated only in the parts that are traditional media. We don't have capacities, so now the government is working on AI strategy in public administration and how to use AI for tourism. Our police directorate misinterpreted first record of Miloš Medenica as AI and said that police forensics did that, which is so embarrassing. So it says a lot about our capacities to deal with. Police now uses the wording hybrid war and things like that. That's popular. Everyone loves to use that. But the problem is that we haven't built any resilience to anything that can and possibly will come for those elections. Many people worry that we might see the attack compared to the attacks that were seen in some other countries. Many already telling scary stories about Moldova scenario and things like that. There is expectation anyway, even in more optimistic scenarios, that the elections will be targeted with disinformation campaigns, that populist right-wing sources will be supported for that purpose. We are already, as CDT's publisher of Raskrinkavanje fact-checking portal, we are analyzing narrative. We are already for prolonged time seeing anti-European narrative being stronger and louder. So we will see an effort also to undermine, well, not the wish to join the EU because that's too high, but at least believe in some European values. So, and I think that these elections will be closely observed by those among European member states that are worried about potentially involving candidate that is too vulnerable to malign foreign influences and that can import this in the European Union. So it's going to be an important test, but I also don't think with all this, I don't think that Montenegro can fail that bad because I saw so many failures that were not considered that because of this, they call it momentum, in which it is a great momentum.
Okay, meanwhile, okay, we got one hand. Okay, two.
Hi everyone, my name is Slobodan. I'm from Bosnia and Herzegovina. Maybe a quick question for Mr. Adnan, also maybe even for our moderator Srđan. This year in Bosnia and Herzegovina, elections are quite historical due to new technologies that we will have. Do you have any fears regarding the new technologies, and what is the impact that you are expecting that those new technologies will bring? We are aware that in Montenegro, I believe in 2020, the elections that they had with new technologies, and I mean, is there any way that we can compare it? Thank you.
Let's take another one and then...
Yes. Okay, this is the benefit of being the microphone guy. I can immediately give it to myself. That's great. So I have a question. It's not particularly directed to any particular person, but it's mostly about the Bosnian perception of Montenegrin's accession, and then especially to the Schengen zone in the future. Because I was wondering, as Bosnia has had quite a negative experience with the entry-exit system of the EU, if it is part of the narrative, if it is a concern to Bosnia, that the accession of Montenegro will very seriously hinder the regional mobility. Recently I had the benefit of driving through Montenegro to Albania, and it was very easy, and this will become, for example, very difficult, if not impossible, if they enter the Schengen zone.
Thank you. Yes, that's a very painful issue for Bosnia and Herzegovina. So, Adnan, would you like to take
Yeah,
sure.
And
then I will...
Yes, we have, so this...
But please be brief. We do
the
have only
elections,
10 minutes.
yes, this October, we will have, if everything works as planned, and apparently it looks as if it will, we will have a biometric checks of those who will come to vote, which means that we will, at least to some extent, through this, theoretically, offset some of the major problem with the manipulation with the electoral rules, which are which I believe were one of the major problems with the integrity of the electoral process in Bosnia, because we had right now we are the country of some 2.6, 2.7 million people. We have electoral roll with we have electoral roll with 3.2 million people. So there a lot of those people are actually still the citizens of Bosnia. They live abroad. We have a passive registration process, meaning that these people are, you know, as soon as you have one of the three documents, official ID documents, you basically are part of the electoral roll. So we are trying to, with this biometric thing, we will try to offset this particular problem, so that, you know, there is no manipulation with unused ballots after 7 o'clock. If you have a polling station committee, which is usually a single party polling station committee or two party multi-party polling station committee. So we do know that, and we think that this will, at least to some extent, offset that particular problem. The other thing is that we will also have scanners at the elections, and it basically means that, you know, once you cast your ballot, it will go through the scanner, it will be read and stored, apparently, locally on that particular machine. Why? Because that's a gold for political parties, right? Having access to the data about how the electoral process is unfolding, you know, how many of our people voted, and so on and so forth. So there are concerns about the you know, data protection here, which I think were to some extent offset by this model, where this is going to be then sent after the polling stations close immediately, which will probably crash the server, but it doesn't matter. Will be sent to the Central Election Commission, and then we'll have, for the first time in the history of this country, we'll have results on the same day of the elections. You know, for those of you who don't know, we don't actually get those. You know, you wait like 2-3 days, and then you're like 80%, and then you wait another 7 days, and then you're 92%. So this is going to, I think, two things. First one is, yes, reduce the manipulations with a number of issues that were being done at the polling station committees. And the second thing is, it will restore some of the confidence of the people in the electoral process. If you look at this, you will see that the Bosnians are generally very suspicious when it comes to the integrity of the electoral process. But then again, we are suspicious about everything. We don't believe in this, we don't believe in politics, we don't believe in elections, we don't, parties we trust the least. But you know what's interesting? Interesting is that the turnout in this country is around 70%, realistic turnout. That shows, I would say, relatively strong desire to
50%.
participate. Unofficial, because the officials basically are based on the electoral roll, which is 3.2 million. So that makes no sense whatsoever. Concerning your question about the effects, and you know, Milica did mention this, when you said you don't expect that this is going to give a boost to anything in the region once Montenegro becomes a member of the European Union. There is a widespread perception that the enlargement framework as it is set up right now has been exhausted. There is a widespread perception that it will not continue within the given framework. So I would say that Montenegro, even though I fully support this, is much more the question of EU's desire to see another country joining within the existing framework, so as to prove that this is still valid. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, because you know, we don't have a replacement for it. We have a number of ideas how this could be replaced, phased, differentiated, talk about this, talk about that, but I still think, you know, I will come back to this and give segue to Agon. I think that there are two countries that deserve special attention when it comes to this. You know, Kosovo and Bosnia are, listen, Bosnia, I mean, sorry, I have to say this, because, you know, I keep repeating this to people, because I think somebody should really, you know, kind of, it should result with some traction. Bosnia is the first heavily decentralized country to enter into European Union. First. Not to mention, so for instance, let me compare to this. We have a political figure in Bosnia who is anti-European, who wields veto power. So imagine if you had a situation in Moldova where Maia Sandu's party had to find somehow an agreement with the parties from Transnistria. Or if Ukrainians had to do the same with Donetsk, Luhansk, with Crimea. Imagine if this worked, right? This is what is asked of us. It's asked of us to basically deliver within the given framework the reforms with people who are pure transactionalists, right? Something like you have in the United States right now. So it's not just our problem anymore. But I'm telling you that, you know, we really need to, I think what will happen is the Montenegro will be the last within a given framework, and then we will have to rethink things seriously. But as I said, I'm fully supportive. I think Serbia is very jealous.
Thank you, Adnan. I know that you
awfully jealous.
For whole point, don't ask Adnan any more questions. I'm kidding. One very important question for Agon related to Serbia-Kosovo dialogue. How do you see future of the dialogue, and particularly in the light of what we have seen recently, memorandum of student movement about Kosovo, and it seems that student movement position doesn't differ pretty much from the official positions of the ruling regime in Serbia. So how do you see potential for major breakthrough in the relations between Serbia and Kosovo?
Yeah, that was a very unfortunate and very reactionary text, reflecting reality maybe in Serbia, but unfortunately, it does not send a positive signal that, you know, with or without Vučić there will be any meaningful change. Sort of the signaling to the other side is important. I'm not very optimistic that it will be resolved very soon, because as I said, there is a domestic interest, not just in Serbia, but also in Kosovo, for domestic power reasons to keep this pending, to keep the tensions high. I would like to alert to people that, you know, Kosovo has been a positive example of democratization over the last couple of years, but that democracy is under threat right now. Tremendous pressure on the media, and one of the reasons why we keep having these constant elections is inability of the current government and prime minister to share power. He either wants all constitutional majority, and he's going to try to maybe tire people until he gets that, with 3 or 4 elections. And there's a serious pushback against that effort. So for as long as there is that drive, I don't see an interest either in Kosovo's side for any consensus. What I think is we need to do as civil society regionally, I think we can do something. Some things, you know, we need international support. In case of Kosovo, we need 5 non-recognizers in the EU to recognize Kosovo, to at least for us to have an EU path. We don't even have candidate status yet. But we need to have some sort of solidarity between civil society actors. You know, if leaders are playing this fear-mongering game, then I think we need to disrupt that, whether it's by, you know, Youth Initiative in Belgrade protecting Albanian bakers. The protest movement in Serbia did something fantastic in Novi Pazar, you know, sending, you know, there are reconciliation elements that civil society can do, and that media people here can amplify, I think, more, and to learn from the autocratic practices of one another, sometimes before they happen, so that we know to prevent some things in advance. You talked about electoral engineering in these countries, you know, using ethnic groups. We have something like that emerging now in Kosovo, because what these autocratic leaders want to do, they don't like to be held accountable by the local population, so sometimes they have to invent voters to protect for their agenda. In Kosovo right now, the fate of the country is being basically decided by votes from the diaspora. And we have the government effectively in the middle of the electoral campaign subsidize airlines to bring in diaspora to vote, 2 million euros for airlines to bring in diaspora voters. In talking about how mutual interests sometimes meet, a law on citizenship has been passed on Kosovo, which will now potentially grant Serbs who were immigrated from Bosnia and Croatia during the war and came to Kosovo in the 90s, the possibility to get citizenship. So now a potential new voter pool for Belgrade, because Serbian list also voted for that law together with the government in Kosovo. Potential more voters to engineer and manufacture from Belgrade, and also potential for more Kosovo Albanian diaspora to get votes. So there are these regular techniques that we need to learn from. There's sharing that needs to be done, and sort of, you know, not to amplify this militarization discourse that is there and that is fueling this autocracy. I'm not optimistic, but what gives me optimism is, I know Milica will hate me for this, but Montenegro. I do think it sends a positive signal. I do think that this, you know, feeling of left out of the other 4 countries, you know, we will feel more pressure to do something if we see that Montenegro and Albania is moving forward, which is why I'm emphasizing the need to support the protest movement in Albania, because what the protesters there are demanding is exactly this merit-based process, because their demands are what EU accession should be about, you know, and not this sugar-coating, just diplomatic protest. And so if Albania manages to kind of push through a more meaningful reform, and if Montenegro joins, I think that will send a more positive signal to everyone else for these, I would tentatively call loser countries, the other 4, to maybe shake things up domestically as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Agon, for this nice conclusion, even though you are not optimistic, but I still would like to finish.
It's hard to be, I mean,
It's hard.
I'm trying my best, yeah.
We opened many issues, and it seems that we could discuss about these topics for the whole point. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, and I would like to thank my panelists, and please join me in applause for my panelists. Thank you once again.
Hello. Hi, it's time for another panel, and I will have to ask previous panelists to give us. Thank you very much. Hello and welcome to another. I think this panel will be as depressing as the previous one, or maybe even more. I'm really sorry, but at least maybe we will give the answer to the question from the last panel, and that is about the European future of the region. We are already Europe, but EU future of the region, and unfortunately it will not be very, very bright. My name is Nijara Ahmetašević. I'm a journalist, activist, and researcher from Bosnia and Herzegovina. And today with me at the panel, we have Ljupka Mandić-Kelijašević. She's a sociologist and the activist from Novi Sad. Her academic focus is on the Roma population and migration and readmission process in the Balkans. In addition, Ljupka works with the organization Welfare Hub, which focuses on supporting women from Ukraine in the local community. With us is Višnja Katalinić, cultural anthropologist working as a union organizer for migrant workers at the Union of Autonomous Trade Unions of Croatia. Her work focuses on informing migrant workers about their labor rights, union organizing, and public advocacy. Petar Đukanović from Podgorica is currently researching European economic integrations, but he also has a background in human rights and working for the Center for Civic Education. And Ho Becker, who is working in solidarity with people crossing borders for several years. She is involved in grassroots direct aid structures, engaged in advocacy work, and published analytical works on EU migration policy. We all have quite different backgrounds, but we also have quite a lot of in common, and I think we all can talk about this topic and try to talk about the anti-immigration region and try to answer the question if this region is really anti-immigration. We talk about this topic today when the EU new pact on asylum and migration is kind of like starting, is opening. It's the first day of implementation of this very controversial act, which places the region in a position that we will be turned into something that is called return hub, deportation hub. And the people will be forcibly sent to the region after they have been expelled and deported from different EU member states. It's a pretty dark, it's not a good role to be, and what is very interesting is that none of the countries from the region had anything to say about the pact. While the EU members did vote about it, did discuss about it, we in the Balkans had nothing to say, and we will not be asked to say anything. Nevertheless, we are obliged, we are forced to implement the pact. I want to start with the Hope, who is present in the Balkans for quite a few years now. She published a lot about the situation with migrants in the region, and also she's quite familiar with the pact. So can you give us kind of like a broader picture, and how do you see the role of the countries in the region in implementation of the pact?
Firstly, thank you so much for having me and inviting me to this panel. Yeah, I will start by giving a bit of an overview of the pact to kind of frame the discussions that we will have, because as Nijada said, the pact enters into force today. It was finalized and voted on 2 years ago, and now today it comes into force. So it's a reimagination of the common European asylum system, so the minimum standards that have to be upheld by all the European member states. I will explain it from the context, well, I will explain what it looks like in Greece, because Greece is the model for the pact. So essentially, when the pact is made up of 5 different laws that govern all the different parts of the asylum procedure. It begins when somebody enters a member state. They go into what's called a screening procedure, which is governed by the screening regulation. And this includes what's now being called a legal fiction of non-entry. So now when somebody enters an EU country, they're no longer considered as having actually entered the territory of an EU country anymore. They're in a legal fiction, a legal non-entry space, which is where the screening zones are. So they're not technically EU spaces. So they go into these screening zones, and then they are held there, where they're sorted into different categories, which would be basically if you will be going into a full assessment of your asylum claim or an accelerated border procedure. So what that looks like in Greece is, say, a boat arrived to the island that has in this boat, there's Sudanese and Egyptians. Sudanese are deemed to have likely that they would be granted asylum. So they go into a regular procedure, they're distributed to different centers and camps across the territory, whereas Egyptians are seen as not having a claim to asylum. So they go through an accelerated procedure where their case is assessed very, very quickly, and they're funneled directly into deportation procedures. So this is what it looks like currently in Greece, and has looked like for a few years. But currently other external member states like Bulgaria, like Croatia, are building these facilities to do the same process of screening. There's also discussions about the role of AI in the screening procedure, so using facial recognition technology to see where someone's from, to determine if they're a minor or not, using AI to determine where somebody's accent is from, if they're really from where they say they are. So this would be this is the first step. I won't go through all of the different regulations because there's 5 and they're very complicated, but another important one to know about is there was a regulation called AMMR, which is supposed to be the solidarity mechanism. So this is supposed to be, obviously people are arriving to a certain number of countries because of where they're geographically located, and people should be redistributed out to Northern European member states that don't necessarily have the same number of arrivals. Originally, this was the idea, was how to balance the numbers, so how to share the asylum applicants equally geographically. But what it came down to in the final version that was voted on was you can either take somebody who's applying for asylum or you can pay for somebody else's deportation. So to explain this, if in Greece you have, again, a Sudanese person who has an asylum application, say France could decide to relocate that person to France and they could get asylum there to support with the pressure on Greece. Or at the same time there's another Egyptian person who's going to be deported, France can instead just pay for their deportation rather than take anybody. And there's no mechanism for if more countries pay for deportations, then agree to relocation, which is certainly what will happen, so there's no plan for that. With this whole process, the problem is it all ends up with a lot of people in these deportation procedures, and deportations, as we know, don't happen regularly. This is one of the central challenges that the EU says that they face, that the majority of people given deportation decisions don't end up being deported. So there's a new law that's being negotiated right now that will be voted next Wednesday in the European Parliament, which is seen as the final step of the pact, and this establishes the return hubs, as you were saying. So this is basically the fact that people will, once they are rejected, they've been screened, they've gone through a fast procedure, they've been rejected, then they should be deported, but if the countries of origin don't cooperate with those deportations, they're just being held in these pre-removal facilities on end, and there's nowhere for them to go, and member states don't want these places filling up on their territory, so now there's the plan to establish return hubs, which are basically prisons in non-EU countries where people who are awaiting deportation can be sent. The model that this is based on essentially is the Italy-Albania model. Originally, this was supposed to be an asylum processing place similar to Australia, so people would be sent there whilst their asylum claims were being processed. But because of legal challenges, it became a return hub. So once people have gone through the process, they go to Albania and they wait there to be deported. So they're kind of out of sight, out of mind, put in another space. There used to be a rule that non-EU countries could only be considered safe if a person had a connection to it. So they would have to have lived there, had family there, speak the language. This connection criteria has been removed, so now somebody can be sent to any third country, providing the member state has a deal with that third country. And this is where the Balkans really comes in, because it's conveniently close, it's easy to send people there from the EU member states. So it's highly likely that, similar to Albania, these return hubs are going to be built in the region. We already know that some countries are exploring this. Separately to the EU pact, the UK, as we discussed, has taken a lot of steps also looking into establishing return hubs in the region. So it's kind of like the region is being enrolled into the migration regime, but it's convenient to then keep these countries outside of the EU, because then they're not enrolled fully into the entire system of the pact, so they can be used as these outsourced, externalized zones. And this is really what we're going to see developing in the next years. Currently, say Croatia has a readmission agreement with Bosnia, so Croatia can send people back, but because Bosnia has open centers, people might come and they will just try again to continue the route. When we introduce these prisons, people will be locked in and held there until they are deported, which would close this kind of open cycle of movement, which is exactly what the EU member states want to happen. I think I'll leave it there for now.
Actually, this is already happening for the last 2 or 3 years. Each year to Bosnia, a couple of thousands of people are returned through readmission agreements with different EU countries, including Croatia. Many of these people then are placed in open centers. Lipa is the biggest one, which is an area close to Bihać city, high up in the mountains, surrounded by the landmines. And these people who are staying there are forced to pass through the minefields practically when they are trying to cross into Croatia. Those who are not in open centers like Lipa are held in detention here in Sarajevo, Lukavica actually, suburb of Sarajevo, and people are deported all the time, even though we do not know, it's not public, how many people are really deported where and how this is happening. All of this is financed by the EU and different organizations. The EU pact in a way will legalize something that Croatia is doing for many years, not only Croatia but many other EU member states, which is called pushbacks. pushbacks are illegal practices done by some border police when they push people who crossed borders in irregular way without offering them possibility to apply for asylum, which every person has a right, no matter how that person entered any of the country, but rather they are pushed back by force to another country. And from Croatia, it's most often, I mean, it's only Bosnia and Serbia, and this was happening for years. Croatia became quite notorious. I want to start with Croatia, not because of this, but because Croatia is the only, so far, member state in the region. Citizens of Croatia and politicians in Croatia did have something to say when it comes to pact, and they did. They voted also yes, positive for the pact. But what is interesting that for many years in international media, also here in Bosnia, I have to say, Croatia is seen as one of the countries in the region that is quite anti-immigrant, to put it in that way. Is it really the case? But what is interesting for you, you're speaking from a different angle. Now you're talking about migrants who are registered, who have status, and who are working in Croatia. Yet they have many, many different issues. So how do you see this question? And do you describe Croatia as anti-immigrant country?
Yes, well, maybe not necessarily like in total. I think that Croatia didn't have actually like a very different response to immigrants that maybe some other countries that also were confronted with it. I would say also that we had a few anti-immigrant protests, which were quite unsuccessful. There were like, in Zagreb, there were like around 100 people by my estimation, let's say it like that. I went to that protest, but not, of course, out of support, but to look at it, because that was the first such thing in our society. And there were a few more in a smaller city, but they were really like obscure, like 20, 30 people gathered. And the media that I saw didn't really took them seriously, let's say it like that. On the other hand, we have a lot of people organizing for helping migrant workers to give them support. Here first are NGOs, which I think for our number of people that Croatia has is a really good number, that how many the NGOs developed about the migrants question. Here is also to emphasize church. I would say the church is really giving support to migrants, plus people from various professions, like for example doctors. Migrants, of course, have a lot of difficulties when assessing a healthcare system, but we also have doctors who are basically like waving and saying you can come to me no matter the language barrier. But as you can see, maybe just from this like basic overview, our government has left us alone in this. So we actually don't have any integration policy. So we actually adopted a new Alliance Act by which migrant workers should pass Croatian language exam without supporting them, without giving access to free language courses. So free language courses are held by NGOs who then should be financed maybe better. So this is one thing. Second thing is that we should develop integration centers, and I think we should basically start to look at this question not only as something that migrants should do to adapt to our society, but how can we also as Croats, as locals, can behave better to accept them. because we have a lot of journalists, for example, who are doing various TV shows, about migrant workers' problems. We also have some magazines have a weekly section for migrants' stories and stuff like that. But I think the real integration would be when that migrant would come to a local cafe and drink coffee with some local. So this is something. But I want to emphasize also one important event that happened last summer in Croatia, which divided Croatia, I think, even more on that question, and it is a matter of concert. It is a concert from a Croatian singer, Marko Perković Thompson, who is a quite controversial figure in Croatia, because he actually was a part of a homeland war between Croats and Serbs in 90s, and his songs, we can say some are patriotic, some has a religious theme, but I think I wouldn't use be too hard when I would say that some songs are fascist. Because in some songs he is reviving NDH. NDH is a state which was in Croatia in 40s, and to put it in the most simple way, they had concentration camps in which they took Serbs, Jews, Roma people, and other minorities, and he is giving that state space in his songs. Also, that concert, I think, wouldn't be something special if that was something marginal, but on that concert came almost around 500,000 people. So it was a huge event which polarized Croatia, I think, for that consequences from that concert we are feeling now, even because also it is important how our government was how they handled that. So our government basically went to that concert because they, from my perspective, needed a political makeover, because HDZ, our government, political party that is in power in Croatia, is like right center, and which is not aligned with current trends, let's say it like that. So they needed to move a little bit to the right, but this is how they legitimized that concert, and then those polarizations. And when I say polarizations, those polarizations didn't stay at verbal level. So after that concert, there were many Serbian cultural manifestations which were violently cancelled by some groups of people. Also, there were attacks on migrants, because mostly on deliverers, because they are the most visible on a street and more present. But what is important here is to say that no one stand up from our government to say, okay, this is something wrong.
Just to be clear, migrant workers will not be affected by the new pact.
No, migrant workers' stay is based on their work permit.
However, it creates kind of hierarchy of good and bad migrants.
Yes, of course, because I think when you see someone that you recognize it's not from Europea, basically, let's say it like that, you don't care about his status. So this is something that will surely broaden up those xenophobia sentiments, let's say it like that.
Ljubka, you are working in Serbia, where for many years, since 2014 actually, we have quite a lot of people coming. The entire region actually, we were for a very long time, and we still are a region of origin of migrants. Then we were like a region of transit. More and more, as Vishnja said, but also we can see that in our countries, other countries also, we are becoming a region where people would like to try to stay for a while. We don't know for how long and how it will go. But Serbia will be one of the countries where probably the implementation of the pact, new pact, will be felt and already you can feel it. How the situation is there, and can you describe Serbia or the region as anti-migrant or not?
Yes, but I will start with the one highlighting of the contemporary migration. Firstly, because when we are talking, considering the contemporary migration, the transit migration are the most famous and most numerous in the Balkans, especially the famous Balkan route. In Serbia, there is a very strong experience with transit migration during this more than 10 years, I think. When I saw this migration pact, I have no idea what is so radical different in this territorial migration, because as we talking, there is some kind of tradition of migration on this route, and something what is a little bit problematic with this pact, I saw it is some kind of set of instructions for treatment of migrants, and it is proclaimed like affirmative way to protect the European Union borders, and it probably could be some kind of compromise EU with some European right-oriented political parties. So it is like some kind of a declarative set of the legal issues, as I think. And what I can see in this set of instructions is the problem, what is position of the third countries in this process? Pact is focused on the European Union countries, protecting of the borders, more effective process, but what is of third countries and the countries candidates for the European Union are in position like some states for triage of the migrants, and so this is this is similar process like 10 years ago. I think the whole process is based in collective centers. It is without communication with the public, and the authorities have some solutions to have some triage and some selection. I think in the Bosnia and Serbia, this is some kind of externalization of the European Union countries. So, in this position, we can talk about European fortress again in this kind. So, it could be important to communicate with the public. And the migration policy should be based on briefly and strong migration policy, migration management based on the evidence and on the communication with the public, and with researching and not sensationalization in the media. For now. And also, Serbia had experience with deportations with readmission process, Roma migration from the Western European countries, and I was researching this problematic, so that it is a little bit difficult and problematic because the Roma migrants it is actually now this kind of migration, and they're identified like fake asylum seekers. So this concept is a little bit problematic because they are criminalized on this in this situation because they are asylum seekers. Only they are persons who try to get asylum in the Western European countries, and it is not permitted. So they can be treated like some kind of fake asylum
But the
seekers.
same
So now
terminology is used for people who came in our countries over the last 10 years. Fake asylum seekers, that's terminology used by EU, also by IOM, by different organizations who are working. And also their right to asylum is practically denied, like in this case. So it's very similar.
Yes, it is a kind of dehumanization of migrants and criminalization of their status in this process.
Peter, you're not working directly with migrants, but you are following the situation in Montenegro, which very often is kind of like left aside. Nobody is talking about migrant situation and what's happening with migrants in that country, even though there is quite a lot of people who migrate through Montenegro. A couple of years ago, Montenegro did not have asylum centers or so-called camps for migrants. Nevertheless, in the last 5 years or something like that, EU built 2 centers. And there is a possibility that some of these 2 centers will be used as these so-called detention places or return hubs, or not. How is the situation in Montenegro, and how do people react to increasing number of migrants in Montenegro?
Okay, hi to everyone, and thank you for inviting me to this panel. Yes, that's true. You said that we already have 2 centers, and one of these centers that is near to Albania border is going to be rebuilt, and the capacities will be enlarged for the purpose of respecting this new protocol of the EU when it comes to the migration. When it comes to the general position of Montenegro, when it comes to migration, it is true that this country is not so much into focus, because so far we were just a transit country for the migrants and asylum seekers, and there is a very few of persons that actually got this asylum or international protection in Montenegro, and just few actually stayed to live longer in Montenegro. But what we are facing now is the increasing number of the migrants workers who are coming to Montenegro. And especially we have the issues with accepting them when it comes to the Turkish citizens, because they are representing a huge amount of people, not that huge as our politicians like to say, but some 14,000 of Turkish citizens are actually right now in Montenegro. And probably you already know about the incident that happened in Montenegro last October, when we had, as I said, this political instrumentalization of migrant questions, when some of the politicians from these right-wing parties actually warned through social media and their public speaking that we are going to be again conquered by Turks, because in our country we already have 100,000 of Turks, even though this number is related to the number of all foreigners, not just Turks. As I said, it's some kind, it's 14,000 of Turks that actually have the residence permit in Montenegro, and they heated the atmosphere in a society that actually erupted in these happenings in October 2025, when one of the accident between the foreigners and domestic people, then the Turks were wrongly accused that they are actually were perpetrators of a stabbing of a domestic guy, and then the whole action, hate speech, marches through the cities of Montenegro actually started with the message that we don't want the Turks in our country because they are going to change our identity, they are going to bring, I don't know, their religion, they will transform our society totally, and stuff like that. And these marches lasted for a few days. The response of our institution was very lame. Actually, they accepted this wrong identification of Turks as the main perpetrators, but after the thorough investigation, it came out that the perpetrators were not Turks at all, but the people from the Azerbaijan. And the government actually acted very, I don't know, irrational, and they pleased the public and moral panic by abolishing the free visa regime with Turkey and things like that. And I think that it says a lot about what is going on in Montenegro and how we are handling the whole migration process. It says actually that we have a migration policy that is not adapted and actually didn't foresee what is going on in our country and didn't actually created adequate measures how to prevent this, what happened actually in October. So the general conclusion is that we have a migration policy in Montenegro which is lagging behind what is actual process.
Does it? If we look at the EU and what's happening in the EU and the Western countries, if we look at deportations in the US and what ICE is doing, if we look at the pact and see that ICE is going to be created or already exists even here, then looks like we are quite good in the region. We finally became very close to EU. So, and this is the process of democratization and Europeization. So for many years, EU was what was doing. EU here is bringing us European standards. Seems to be we are finally in standard. You are not from the region, but you are present here for a long time. Do you see us as anti-immigrant region? And comparing to EU, or even better, comparing to UK, where you are coming from, and we can see for the last week riots, and that's like something similar to what did happen in Montenegro, maybe even worse in Belfast. But it's not the first time that something like that is happening in the EU.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's hard to answer this question as someone not from the region, but I do think it's important to make the parallels, like what we're seeing in the UK right now. I don't know if people have followed, but there was an attack on somebody in West Belfast, and basically race pogroms have erupted from there. People are going house to house to find people living in houses that are non-white and burning those houses down, regardless of if they're from a migrant background or born and raised in the UK. This is like the third year in a row now we're having these race riots. 2 summers ago, we had hotels where asylum seekers were being housed, being burnt down by far-right groups. So I think when you see this real tipping point of how far it's gone in the UK, it's such a step further that it's hard to make that comparison, I guess. I think it's very, like, I remember when Croatia was joining the Schengen zone, and lots of people were saying, well, Croatia shouldn't join because of their bad treatment of migrants, etc. But we accept that bad treatment of migrants in France, in Germany, in Italy, and then we make it conditional for the accession of other countries into the EU or into the Schengen zone. So there's a real level of hypocrisy there of, what's acceptable for us and what's acceptable to enter into the EU. So I think, those are some important things to think about when tackling this question as well.
I had to say from my personal perspective that EU is becoming quite scary. Recently I traveled to EU, and in Germany when we landed, the police in 2 vans came on tarmac, and when we were exiting the plane, so not even when we were inside of the building in the airport, They started asking for our passports and asking us why are we coming, how long are we going to stay here, who we are, where are we going, and all these questions. Do we have a proof? Do we have evidence we will go back to the countries? And that was all happening at the tarmac. That's quite scary. And they were not looking for anybody particular. It was just kind of like, let's greet them into this big union. Before I continue with the questions, I want to see if we have questions from the audience. Yes, one.
Thank you all for a very thought-provoking discussion. I'm very new to the country, and one of the first things I've heard since coming to Bosnia is that brain drain is a serious problem that the country is facing right now. So I'm wondering if there are studies or there are CSOs working on whether or not migrant workers can be a force that overturns brain drain, and whether or not that will be able to change the perception that people have here in terms of migrant workers. And I guess a subsequent question that sort of goes with that, do you think that in Balkan countries there's that differential treatment in terms of where migrants are from? Is there, are Asian migrants treated differently compared to migrants from African American countries, etc.?
If not, thank you for this question. We will have another round, but this is a perfect question, actually, that all of you can answer, and we talked about this before this panel. Maybe first to answer, no, there are no studies in Bosnia. There is no studies about anything, so here we have no idea what's happening around us. We are just like a hole. Everything is just falling inside of it. But unlike Croatia, where you do have even the union on migrant workers, today in Serbia they establish the union, but still, even in Montenegro or in Serbia, you do not really have a clear picture on numbers of migrant workers, how do they live, where do they live, which countries they are coming from.
I can jump in shortly. In Montenegro, we don't have any kind of data, just the numbers. But we don't have data on what kind of educational background of these people is, because probably some of the people coming from, it's not a big number, but also we have some people that working in hospitality and tourism from Asian countries, and we have on an anecdotal level information that some of those peoples are very educated, but they are pressed to work, I don't know, like basic physical jobs. But we are, as a country, I think that people who are making decisions in our country and managing migration don't have that kind of a vision, that we need to research a bit deeper about this potential that these people could actually bring to our society, because we're just dealing with numbers and the procedures and everything else, but I think that this kind of research about the potential of people coming to our country is the part of the migration policy that we are lacking at, and it is called integration, in our society. Maybe we could get something more from them, but we are neglecting it totally.
Ljubka, also in Serbia, you do not have any data on...
Yes, I would like to say it's a very similar situation. It is very hard to provide, to make some research or evidence about migrant workers in Serbia. Only National Agency for Employing has some evidence about work permissions, and there is no another data about the workers in Serbia, but it is some special corpus for evidence about migrants. But it is very important in all Balkan countries. It is very important only just for the big cities of destination, because there is not the same migrant situation in every part of these countries, but local migration profiles are very important, and national migration profile to like instrument and briefly carried evidence about migrants for managing the migration and created some intelligence migration policy. And it's important to say that, again, to say communication with the public. It's a very wrong idea to make managing of migration in some areas of collective centers and with no, the community has the right to know who are the migrants, who is in the community, and the personal stories of the. It's very important for. It's more human and more intelligence to present the migrants as the humans with their personal stories and another different situations in the community.
Because migrants are humans. We are all migrants in some time of our lives. Vishen, in Croatia, you do have some data. What is interesting for me, is there a difference in how migrant workers from Bosnia, Serbia, and like neighboring countries are treated in Croatia from how people from some faraway countries are treated? Is it different?
Yes, Croatia indeed now has a lot of data. It really boomed, let's say it like that. So we have different data. So currently in Croatia there are around 105,000 migrant workers, mostly from Bosnia and Serbia, but then comes Philippines, Nepali and India as most populous. Here I would like to maybe say that we have a very interesting approach to different migrant groups, because as some research has been made, that we actually have a problem with Muslims, that Muslims are Muslim anti-sentiment, let's say it like that, is beneath all those xenophobia. Plus, I think the interesting moment is when where there was a kind of a propaganda, I would say it like that, that people from Philippines are closer to us culturally than Bosnians and Serbians because they are Catholic. And I think that has something to do with agency businesses, because it is more, it makes more money to bring someone from Philippines than from Bosnia and Serbia to Croatia. I see that time is up. I could go on, but I think that those moments are very interesting in our society.
This was very brief. I'm kind of like completely surprised that it's already up. Thank you very much. This was very interesting for me. Thank you for listening to us. And don't forget that migration is a natural process. It's a process that helps to all of us, to the world. That's something what we need. That's something that we are all migrants in some stages of our life. And yeah, abolish the borders. That's the only way of living. Thank you.
Ja sam prvo pakirala stolicu,
Ova je malo bolja od ovaj kao sve tamo. Ova je najbolji. Še tu moraš malo leći, ali
dobro, mislim, nema sad nešto fiksno da moderator baš mora doći. To je to. Birajte. Evo, vi izabirite, ja ću šta ostati.
Ovaj ti je znak, da ti je online, eto tako je da... Ti možeš malo...
Trebalo bi biti, ja.
ovdje mi je teško, kamar je mi smo malo jesmo, kako si? Ja sam i pomisla, Folter će pripaziti. Tri. Aha.
Okay. Okay, I think it's the last panel for the day. Yeah, we changed it a little bit. The first one where the moderator is not in the green chair. I'm happy to greet you all. My name is Nikola Bačić. I'm an investigative journalist and editor-in-chief at Herzegovina Info, media portal in Mostar. And we have been writing and investigating lots about illegal quarries, especially in the Herzegovina region. And now we're going to broaden up a little bit on the topic. I'm happy to say hello to Meliha Kešmer from Radio Free Europe, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Leila Kusturica from ACT, the Atelier of Community Transformation, and Edina Osmanovic from Montenegro. She's an activist and a young EU ambassador, and she has an interesting case study on Velja Gorana. Did I say it right? And from Belgrade we have Miloš Katić, and that's how we are going to start. The previous panel, the moderator said it's going to be depressing. I hope this one won't be as depressing, even though the intro is going to be a bit depressing, because why we are all here is because of one of the biggest tragedies that struck Bosnia and Herzegovina since the 90s, since the war, and that's the floods in Donja Jablanica, where 19 people died, basically. And still, to this day, since October of 24, nobody was charged. We still don't know whose fault it was. But what we do know is that an illegal quarry was one of the reasons for the tragedy that happened. So I'm going to give the floor, or the screen, to Miloš to present you what the Radio Free Europe team did to map all these illegal quarries across the Western Balkans and what they found out. And they found out that out of, I think, 1,300, they found that 600 quarries were illegal, basically. Miloš, you there?
Thank you. Yes, thank you for introduction, and first of all, thank you for the opportunity to join you online today. Unfortunately, I am not able to be with you in Sarajevo in person, and I know that the atmosphere at the Point Conference is always excellent, so Darko and the team really know how to create a great space for networking. So today I will talk about how we investigated queries across the Western Balkan. So you already mentioned that that tragedy, and that was the basic point for us. So everything started with the tragedy in Jablanica in Bosnia and Herzegovina on October, almost two years ago, in the village of Donja Jablanica. 90 members of families and neighbors lost their lives. So inside the digital forensic unit at Radio Free Europe. We discussed that situation and also with one simple observation that we probably have many places like this across the region, close to people, and we are not even aware of them. So we started to talk and to listing places we knew from our own communities, and some of us said that maybe we should do this for Serbia, and then how it usually happened in our unit, the idea quickly became, why only Serbia? Let's do it for the whole region. So that was the moment when we started. The first challenge for us was to collect information about legal queries. So we started with Serbia, and that first point we were quite happy because we found on the official website the site GeoJSON file with description of approved licenses, and at that moment it looked like the data collection would be relatively easy for us. But of course, how things are going here. Next step was, for example, Kosovo. The register was incomplete and not updated in North Macedonia and Montenegro. We received hard copy documents, often with wrong coordinates, and on top of that, depending on the country, coordinates were provided in different systems, including Gauss-Kruger zones 5, 6, and 7, so it was really challenging for us. But then came Bosnia and Herzegovina. Honestly, I do not know what it looks like when an ordinary citizen needs to do something for themselves across different entities and levels of government. And I think that was the moment when I started to understand why people in Bosnia are so chill. There is no point in being nervous all the time. So jokes aside, Bosnia and Herzegovina was the most complicated country for data collection because of the different institutional responsibilities. We lost a lot of time trying to understand who had what data, where it was stored, and in which format. So in the end, we still could not collect everything for that country. So here I want to make some maybe first methodological note. So we used, for example, ChatGPT to help us to convert hard copy documents into a digital format, but we did not simply trust the output. So how could we be sure that there were no hallucination or major mistakes? First, polygon coordinates have a specific logic. So you can see here on that hard copy that polygon starts and ends with the same coordinate. So second, we matched the shape of the polygon from the official image which we receive and match it with polygon with the data which we converted and imported in Google Earth. So after this, step one, when we are talking about some specific tool, at that moment Earth Index was not open to everyone. Access was granted after approval. So we had heard about the tool at a conference where Venezuelan journalist Joseph Policuk mentioned that he had used in his reporting to identify illegal mines. And thanks to him, we established contact with the Earth Index team and presented what we wanted to do. I have to say they were extremely professional and helpful. They reacted quickly, gave us short training on how to use the tool, and later we stayed in regular communication with them. So we gave them feedback for improvements and things like that. So today Earth Index is open to everyone, especially for journalists. So we strongly recommend it for using for this kind of investigation. So first we trained the tool on several examples for which we know that are queries, so it could recognize the kind of visual partners we were looking for. After that, we received prediction for around 1,000 locations. Of course, when we are talking about AI, there were false positives, but at this moment I cannot give a precise number about those false positives, because that was 2 years ago, and I will be honest that I do not remember. So step 2 was understanding the limits of artificial intelligence. This was very important for us. Earth Index gave us scale, but it did not give us final answers. So that is something we would really like to underline, that it was very useful, but it was not evidence. Some construction sites, sand pits, mines, or even natural scars in the landscape looked similar to quarries. On the other side, there were missed targets, especially older sites, overgrown places, or locations where the terrain disturbance was not fresh enough. So we treated every AI result only as a lead, so not as a proof. So step after that was overlaying the legal layer to find discrepancies. So after we had the possible query location, we compared them with official concession areas and permits. So this where the investigation became really interesting. You can see that difference in the green one is a permit which were granted, and with red one is the how it looks like on the ground. So in some cases the query was visible in satellite imagery, but we could not find a matching permit. In other cases there was a legal concession, but the physical footprint of the query was much larger than the approved area. So the question was not only whether a query was legal or illegal, the question was also whether legally registered companies were operating outside of the borders of what they were allowed to exploit. So after that, there comes the human verification. We use Google Earth Studio, I already mentioned it, and Planet Labs for high resolution images, but also Mapillary and Street View. I must stress here that Mapillary is really useful for Balkan region, and we found really good picture and videos on that app. And of course, we relied on traditional reporting. We contacted the local sources, NGOs, and people who knew the places. So in some cases, field visits were necessary. So this was important because satellite imaging can show the scar, but people on the ground can explain a real situation there. After that, we have a criteria. So we looked for clear visual indicators, and you can see on the picture what was there, and we use it to be sure that we are talking really about the queries, and after that we matched and we decided to show on different colors. You will see on our article, and at the end we identified around 1,350 query sites across 5 countries. More than 6 were operating illegally outside approved areas or outside the available official records, and around 750 had some form of legal permit. So nearly half of the query actively we mapped was in the dark in this story. For us, the innovation was workflow, not just a tool, but workflow, and how we combine different tools with collection data and verification, and at the end with field evidence. And some lesson learned for us is that AI is fast, but it can be wrong. Public records are official, but they can be outdated, incomplete or practically unusable. So satellite images are powerful, but they still need interpretation, and journalists bring the judgment that connects all of this into one story. So that is the main value for us, and in the end this investigation shows us one simple thing. When institutions fail to map reality, journalists can try to reconstruct it. So not perfectly, not magically, but systematically and on transparent way, and with evidence that people can check. So here is a QR code for that investigation, so you can check it, you can play with polygons and find additional information about our investigation, and also about all those of facts.
Thank you, Milos. Quite impressive, and I can see the potential of this, what do you call it, an application/investigation. And I like what you said when you were finishing up, that technology itself is not enough. You need people on the ground, and that's why we have Meliha here. She was part of the team, and she was the one on the ground and in the most complicated country. You were investigating this one where we are right now, Bosnia and Herzegovina. So can you first tell me if the governments and the inspections of Bosnia and Herzegovina are aware of this investigation, and what was their reaction when you showed it to them?
I heard you well, so you mentioned institutions and reaction, yes?
Exactly. Yep.
So on the, how to say, we already mentioned that on the very beginning for us was really hard to collect information, and I already mentioned that at the end we didn't manage to collect all information, but when we finished this investigation, we sent the article to all institutions with which we were in some kind of communication, and also offer them if they want to use our data and our files, but we received zero answer on that. On other side, we have, I think, 2 days after we published this article, guys from Wikipedia, to be precise, WikiHub, contacted us to ask for permission to use that article, and if we can send them a file and the coordinates, because they want to continue a story around that and to share with the society.
Thank you, Milos. The same question goes to Meliha, but also what did you encounter when you went on those sites? Milos showed us something from above. Now you can maybe explain from the ground.
Okay, you can hear me. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you, Milos, for the presentation, and thank you, Nikola, for your question. So, as Milos said, Bosnia is more complicated than any other country, I would say, because of our government and fragmented government and many institutions, and all of them have some kind of role when it comes to queries as well. So, to be precise, when it comes to this investigation, we were writing to everyone that could be involved in query businesses. When a query is open, let's say in Bosnia, it needs to have permit, it needs to have concession approval or agreement, it needs to have environmental approval, and to make it simply as possible, in Bosnia there is no central register for these things, and there is no one agency that will give you all these permits and all these approvals. It is divided, these responsibilities are divided among entities, cantons in federation entity, ministers inside the federation entity, and even municipalities. So when you start searching, you are lost at the beginning. And we asked everyone, as I said, involved in this during investigating this story, and we got answers. In entity of Republika Srpska, it is much better. They are centralized at some point, and they gave us documents and they gave us some answers about queries. In Federation, we got answers from one canton, it's Herzegovina-Neretva canton. Some part of the information they gave us, I'm not sure they gave us everything. And also we got partial data from Federation Ministry of Economy. So it leaves us with 9 cantons in Federation that gave us nothing, even though we repeated our requests for a few months, I think 2 or 3 months to be precise.
Basically, they chose to break the law. You sent probably FOIA requests that obliged them to answer inside 15 days.
It's about responsibility. They will always find a reason not to give you the answer. They will even go that far to tell you we are not in charge. And then you need to research like who is in charge. And as I said, like one institution will give them the person who wants to open the query. One institution will give them permit. Other institution is in charge for environmental approval. Third institution will be in charge for inspection, let's say. So basically it leaves us with no answers at the end, and no one really knows everything about one location, one query location. And to go back to Jablanica that Milos mentioned, I think that nowhere was this visible more than in Donja Jablanica. Because this is not, I mean, even before the tragedy that took 19 lives, activists and environmental groups were talking about, about this problem of these exact locations, but no one was doing anything. And even after the tragedy, almost 3 years now, in October it will be 3 years, right, since this happened. It's not that just journalists don't have answers about this query. It is that prosecutors' offices don't have answers. This case, the investigation on Jablanica, was transferred recently from Herzegovina-Neretva Canton Prosecutor's Office to Special Prosecutor's Office of Entity of Federation. And we were informed, after this happened, we were informed that the investigation will basically go to the beginning. Like everything they did in more than 2 years, it's nothing. It's nothing. Like they need to start from the beginning. And you can't not to ask yourself, like, will it be possible for them to do a thorough investigation after that much time has passed? And also another question that I have is, if this is happening with case where we lost 19 lives, and when this tragedy attracted not just national but regional and international following, let's say, and covering the story, then you need to ask yourself what is happening in some other location that we never heard of, maybe, and that they weren't in media, they weren't, I mean, activists probably know more about that. But yes, the answers are impossible, and this is not, of course, anyone who did any data journalism in Bosnia knows that this is not the case only on queries. It's almost anything, especially environmental stories and environmental topics.
Yeah, but I can see that the inspectors are not doing their part of the job, obviously, because even though you did the investigation, you gave them the weapon to do their job and to close the illegal queries, but they just chose not to.
I can't be 100% sure that no one reached to us because we had many changes in our office as well. But I don't think anyone really came to us after the story was published and gave us anything more or tried to say that something is not true maybe or anything like that. And when we talk about numbers, we found the AI, the satellite imagery found 329 queries in Bosnia, and 1/3 of them had, we confirmed they have some kind of permits, and 2/3 of them are left in gray zone. That's why you saw the map and they were in orange color, because not because we determined they are illegal, but that we couldn't determine anything about them.
Yeah, somebody should just question it, check it and see if they're clean or not.
But even if you go to check them, you can't really, I mean, we went to Donja Jablanica not just once when the tragedy happened, but also half year after we went and we tried to confirm anything, but we went to the company that is now being investigated in this case, and everything that you need to do to get the story, but unfortunately it's stayed. I mean, as I said, the prosecutor's offices are not able to finish their investigation, so.
Thank you. Edina, do you see any connections with your case in Montenegro from what you've heard so far?
Dobar dan svima, Mirdita Gjithve, good afternoon everyone. First of all, thank you for having me here in Sarajevo. And yes, definitely there is a connection, and I'm immensely proud that I'm here today because I believe that being an ecological activist, it's something which sometimes can actually even put your life in danger. And it's a very specific and complex things. And you know, when I'm hearing you and Milos, it's definitely a lot of interconnection and things which are happening across the region and in our countries. Maybe I will do a little bit of an introduction for people who are not from Montenegro. So I've been leading an ecological fight against quarry around 7 years now. So when I was 22 years old, I started this thing which completely changed the course of my life. And that is why I think we should speak about this, because maybe our stories can actually help somebody else who's in the same situation and change it before it's too late. So one day in a newspaper, I just read that a quarry stone is supposed to happen in my village called Velja Gorana in a city, Bar, in Montenegro. And the concession was signed between the private investor and the country for the next 30 years. And imagine that was just like 200 meters away from our houses. So I just started, you know, calling people and being like, okay, this is impossible. This cannot happen. We have to do something. But people were telling me, no, it's a done deal. You know, it's done. Everything is by the law. That's, you know, a legal quarry. So there is nothing actually you can do, and you should not mess around with those people. You know, it's like above 60 million of euros on the stage. And I was naive enough and maybe, you know, brave and not even knowing what is actually, you know, happening behind of that. So what I did, I started calling investigative journalists in Montenegro and activists and being like, okay, can you help me? Because this is new to me. What can we do? I gathered all the activists from Montenegro. I gathered all the journalists. I called our diaspora to help us finance the good lawyers. So we started, you know, making a real fight, and everything. We did like a really huge media pressure. Why this story is like so interesting, because we had to fight against 4 governments in this period of 7 years. Like 4 governments in Montenegro changed, And it's interesting that this private investor somehow, found that all of them are protecting him. So, the story goes the same. First, what they did, they go by bribing people around you. So they started, asking people, do you want one apartment or two apartments in order to, sell us your land next to the quarry stone. So at one moment, I was really acting as an FBI agent and trying to figure out, what is happening around me. So we had to figure out strategies all the time to be there. And when somebody tells you, oh, you're just an activist, like, no, we really have the power and we really can change things for the better. And I think that is why conferences like this and stages like this are so important, because once when you realize that whatever you say can change people's life and can actually protect our environment and change the laws, it's really important. And 7 years later, we won on a court, and the elementary court in Bar. So we actually proved that all of that was illegal, that they were bribing, but unfortunately that is not the end. We're still waiting for the higher court. So the problem there is that they can always affect the courts, how the politics are, mingling around, they go through it. So sometimes there are things that we cannot directly influence, but whenever we do that media pressure and whenever we have the local community all together, it is actually possible to do it. And why I'm very proud of this, because after this fight, there were people who came to me and being like, oh my God, Adina, like we have the same issue in our village, for example, in Cetinje. How can we do this? And then I would be like, okay, these are the steps, call these and these person, find a lawyer, do this. And maybe after a month, they would call me and be like, okay, we stopped it, this was on time. And that is when I figure out that actually, we did a huge things. Even though my case is still ongoing and it's super complicated, I know that I've did an impact across the Montenegro, and that we showed to our young people who are, actually starting to be an ecological activists and civic activists that they should be persistent, they should try, they should never give up, because whenever we're fighting for what is just, for what is right, it doesn't matter if the justice is slow. We know that it is, but it's actually possible, and we should keep doing that, and we should all get together, even from the region, and actually send one very positive message that whenever we're together, we can actually make it. So, yeah.
Applause first. But what was unbelievable for me when I was reading about your case and seeing the video footage, it took 7 years to prove that they are making a quarry 200 meters next to somebody's house. I mean,
that's why I said it's incredible, because that's the only investor who got this concession. And obviously, as I said prior to this, it was maybe our luck, because I was, very persistent, and I was trying to figure out that whenever the new government would change, I would have to figure out when was the moment to go and push the media. For example, if something very important in the country would happen, I would be like, okay, this is not the moment to go with our story, because other stories will cover it. So we always had to pay attention, when was the momentum and when should we do it. And I believe that whenever God is putting you some problem or a burden on your shoulder, you should know that you have the capacity to, move forward with it, and it's not in vain. And somehow, always, good people would come across, and good people would surround me, and we would do it all together. So it is really incredible that it took 7 years, but that is on purpose, because what they wanted to do, and in a way they did it, they just wanted to leave me all alone. So all the people, even my own community, there was a period of time, and that is why this is so personal for me, because this happened in the most beautiful years of my youth, and somehow, there is a saying in Montenegro where they were saying that neće nama žena krojiti kapu, yeah? No woman will go over there and lead our fight, we can do it alone. So there was that side as well, which is, putting a lot of pressure on me. But as I just came back from my studies in Spain and US, I was like, all full of energy, on fire, and just believing in justice and being like, okay, we have to do it by the book, and it should be that way. What I want to send is the message that those people who are doing those ecological elaborates and concessions and all over, they never thought that there will, come some girl from Spain and start reading like 400 pages and be like, okay, this is not right, this is not right, because they always had politicians guarding them, because there is somebody's money involved over there, right? There is a business, there is money behind of that. And they made a lot of mistakes along the way. But what is more importantly, I even had to change a couple of lawyers because even the lawyers at one point of time were not working for us. They were working for somebody else, obviously. But what is the issue there? You can never prove it by the end. But you have to, follow your gut feeling and follow your heart and see that whenever somebody's trying to hide information from you, it's something. So that is why this case is like so complex. They always had people guarding them. They always had people doing, and they were trying just to leave me all alone. So I would get tired, and at one point of time, I really got tired, and COVID was there, and I would just like getting sick all over and over again. But I would just like go in the field, give interviews, write press releases, and push it forward because I knew that if I don't do it, I wasn't sure who else would, have the courage and the capacity to do it. So that is why I'm saying whenever you see that there is injustice happening, we should act on it, because no matter how small that is, it's a chain of good things happening all over again, and we can create a positive impact. So, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, just one small question. From what I gathered by interviews with activists, a lot of them told me they were pressured in a way, their families were pressured, and the investor tried to bribe them. Did you encounter those problems during those 7 years? How did you say no?
Okay, so first what they did is actually investigate where am I working, who am I, so they would send, it would never be directly, okay? They were very cautious about that, so just because of this, so I cannot come today and be like, they can do it, so they would be, hey, that's not right, right? People would just come across and ask me, where am I working? Do I need something? Do I want to go somewhere? There were a lot of people who started writing hate speech and hate comments about me. And, I was 22 years old, somebody saying, rude words to me. It was really emotional. So there was time when I would just like lock in and cry and be like, how can somebody say this to me when I'm like giving my life and reading all of these documents and do something good for my village? But I don't know, somehow God gave me the power to, move on. And there was a point when they were trying all the political parties because there were governmental changes. They all saw that, okay, this girl has the power that maybe thousands of people would go and vote where she says. So they were trying to, in a way, bring me into the political parties so they could say, okay, you see, we have an activist.
To the dark side.
Yeah, I didn't give in. I was like, I'm going to say the activist because that's somehow, I see it as the purest thing to act and to have the power. And people trust you, people somehow, when you have it within you, I think that people feel it. So, yeah, they tried in different ways, but most obvious one was just like sending around people to make me doubt myself, to make me think that I don't value, there is nothing that I'm doing. And there was a part when I was studying in Spain, there was like a period of 6 months when I wasn't physically in the country. So when they, in a way, changed the lawyers to do some other work to make it go much, much slower, even the new government wrote them a new annexes, of the contract and be like, you can do this work whenever you want without any deadlines. Imagine that. Like, who is that investor for you to say, like, we don't care, you can explore whenever you want to do whatever you do? It's like, it's really crazy. And the point is that our politicians don't feel responsible for what they're doing. And I had to explain to people that that is, catastrophe. That is like, we cannot let that do. And there are elections, we should vote, we should, go towards people who really have sense for what is right. So those things were happening to me, but somehow I found a way to move on and continue because I believe that one of the God's name is that He's just. So whenever He's with us, I believe He's protecting us and just like giving us the strength to move forward. Yeah.
Thank you. Like I told you guys, we're going to start depressing, but we're going to pick you up a bit by a great example. Thank you, Indira. Leila, your organization helped, I think, maybe 50, maybe even more of grassroots activist organizations on the ground.
Yeah.
And I think one thing they all have in common is that the investors come with some nice buzzwords, like investments, development, green transition.
Progress.
And the politicians are like 99% of the time on their side. How do you see that? How do you fight that?
Thank you, Nicola, for the question. Good afternoon. We have 13 more minutes, so I have to be brief. It's the last panel, yeah. Thank you for having us here. It's a depressing topic with the sparkles of hope. And I think in dark times or in very difficult situations, that's what we need. We need light and we need hope to go through that. And Edina's story is one of the hopeful ones. So I'm Leila Kusturica from ACT Foundation. I'm an activist and a director of the foundation. And it's a collective of activists, environmental mainly activists, and artists who are supporting citizen groups like Edina's to fight for nature. In the past 5-6 years, yes, I think we supported over 50, 60 groups. We call them grassroots initiatives, just like the story we just heard. It's a person, it's a citizen from a village, from somewhere that hears about the project and thinks it's devastating for the nature and suddenly starts investigating, finding people, experts, organizations to support that fight. And we are that organization. I think over 5-6 years we worked with hundreds of activists, not only from Bosnia and Herzegovina, but also regionally. The support that we give is legal support. You mentioned lawyers, capacity building, media campaigning, strategizing, and etc. We kicked off, I don't know how many people from Bosnia or the region are here, but we kicked off with a river movement in Bosnia that managed to ban small hydropower plants in part of the country, Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and it's still considered to be one of the biggest environmental victories regionally. We also focus on forest, and the thing that I wanted kind of shed light to or on is extractivism in a broader sense, quarrying included. The new dark matter above our region for the past 3-5 years that it's happening. So just to make a bridge between what we were talking and the broader perspective that I would like to introduce here. Our institutions in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we heard it's complicated. We are the country that it's complicated. Basically, they are not acting to protect the public good interest. They are not accountable, no transparency, corruption-wise, you know, we really don't stand very well. So citizens have all the right to question the way institutions operate in terms of being sure that someone there, some expert on some, you know, office in the government will protect their own interest. Unfortunately, even with domestic investments, domestic, national, whatever we want to call them, investors, we see this trend of institutions basically siding with the investor. What do we mean by that? Even when the laws are good, you know, when we have procedures, practices, policies that are there to support the public interest, we see how institutions, you know, just avoid, do something, hallucinate. I read it on the PowerPoint, hallucinate something and just made it up and deliver an environmental permit or something to the investor.
They find loopholes basically in their own laws.
Yeah,
and
they make,
they're really good at it.
Yes, they make holes and then they go through them. But apart from what we have been experiencing for the past 20-30 years, in the past couple of years, the global scene changed with the green energy transition. there is this increased demand for critical mineral resources like cobalt, nickel, lithium, and etc. And we see this trend that more and more international corporations, very big ones, are becoming very much interested for our region, because apparently we sit on a significant reserves of these resources. What's that doing to us? Well, we already have a very weak framework that couldn't even protect us from so to say, internal, investment, progressive development things. And now having like big corporations that sometimes have budget is more than the whole budget of this country is putting at risk literally the safety of our lives, the health, the environment, and the nature. And unfortunately, their interest is very clear. It's to maximize profits. And we are encountering a situation where our institutions are not capable, not willing, you can name it, to protect the public interest. And I wanted just to maybe name a couple of things that we see on the ground. So I am an activist. I go to the field. I meet people like Edina. Usually they invite us. They say, oh, hey, we have a problem. It's something about the river, something about the forest, or these new mines that are opening up, or the plans. And usually, unfortunately, we learn and citizens learn about these projects when concession agreements are already signed. And you probably know how hard it is. And one of the weaknesses of our concession framework here regionally in Bosnia in particular is the fact that once the concession agreement is signed, citizens cannot break it in the law, even though institutions, government, whoever signed the agreement is not actually protecting the public interest. And that makes activists, citizens, battles, fights way harder, because you have to pressure the institution to break the concession agreement. Another thing that we are encountering all the time, I don't know, Edina, if you agree, here we lack proper inclusion or participation of the citizens from the earliest stages of some potentially harmful environmental projects. So people don't get to say what they think about the development plans that are coming and projects to their communities. And even when public hearings are organized, according to our law, there is no obligation to include the comments that institutions receive by ordinary citizens or expert groups. Our legal, especially concession framework, is a magnet for big corporations who are now, just going around the globe and finding places to dig these precious resources. But we said it's a depressing story with sparkles of hope. People are rising up in a situation where you don't have institutions, going to the front and defending your interest by changing laws, bringing strategic documents, which we don't have for critical mineral resources here in Bosnia. You mentioned how the responsibilities are so fragmented, which is making everything more complex. In Republika Srpska, they changed the law, I think 2 years ago, geological exploration law, basically allowing investors to do the extraction without any kind of environmental study impact assessment because it's the exploration, and they broaden the zone, I think, by 200 times. So we see the trend, instead of actually, kind of becoming more serious, digging up and bringing laws or aligning with certain European Union directives, like a concession directive, we are even watering down what we are having just to please big corporations who are coming and, offering something to our institutions. In that situation where you don't feel protected by the ones who are supposed to protect you, and it's the institutions, people rise up, just like the story we heard. And in Bosnia, I dare to say, we have had one of the most vivid river movement, and now it's an environmental movement across the region. people are literally guarding their rivers, their forests, their land with their bodies, sitting or sleeping in the riverbeds for 300-something days, stopping machinery with their bodies, while other activist groups are fighting legally, fighting in terms of media. And maybe to make a bridge, all these tools are super important. We need tools that are making access to information easier and faster, because usually we don't have time. Everything is so critical. And silence of administration is one of the problems that we face here very often. We were just discussing how the Federal Minister for Justice did not approve our request for information about forest law in part of the country, because he said we have not justified the public interest. So environmental organization asking about the law, which we don't have for 16 years, and we were rejected. But we fight it, and these grassroots initiatives, they are coming together. And I'm so proud, and Edina, maybe I'll use this opportunity to invite you to join this alliance. It's called Let's Defend the Nature of the Balkans. It started as the Let's Defend the Rivers of the Balkans, but since our problems are going above rivers, now it's including especially like quarries and these mining activities. And it's it's more than 40 groups of ordinary people, thank you, who came together 5 years ago, and now we meet regionally. 2 years ago we were in Montenegro, in Komarnica, we met there, and we strategize, we exchange knowledge, we bring hope, and or we delete the hopelessness that sometimes also comes to us. Maybe I wanted to point out and conclude with saying that we see how this environmental struggle is basically the struggle to practice and build democracy in regionally. After everything that happened in the past, our institutions are captured, and this is one thing that is bringing us all together. All people, regionally, people in Bosnia, we know it's still, unfortunately, a very divided society. But when it comes to rivers, when it comes to forests, we come together at the table and we discuss how to win a certain minister, regardless of the political party, regardless of the canton or the entity. And we see this as our opportunity to ozdraviti. How do we say? To heal as a region. We see how, and also every time we fight for a piece of nature, we are educating our institutions what accountability is. I see a lot of hope when it comes to this. There are a lot of Edinas, hopefully, but for us to win, not the problems, internal problems we have within our countries regionally, but now we are becoming a target of the global actors. We need everyone. So I'll close by saying, I don't know what you do and where are you from and what you do, but if there is a chance for you to somehow take a part in this battle, because it's larger than environment, we invite you to do. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess this kind of connecting between different countries is the point of the Point Conference. 33 more seconds, but I guess Darko is going to give us a couple of more minutes for your questions. So, any questions from you nice people? Do I see hands? Nope, none. So everybody knows everything about mining, or yeah, it's clear. Probably when Donald Trump said "drill, baby, drill," all those big guns at the corporations opened up a map of the world and said, oh, where are we going to drill next, right?
But we see what's happening in Albania, right? And we saw seeds of that happening regionally for the past probably 3 to 5 years, where people, small village people are coming together and then connecting with another village. And we know about Vjosa, it's a first wild river national park of Europe. They are part of the Save the Blue Heart of Europe campaign, and also our organization, Bosnia Bosnia is part of that. We know for 10 years how much they fought, and they got recognized as a national park, but unfortunately, because of corrupt institutions, they started drilling and building whatever luxury resort over there. But people, especially young people, are rising up, and they say, this is for the environment, but this is actually a fight to protect our dignity, our right to kind of decide what we want, whether we want to have a nature or something else. And they definitely don't want that, which is good for flamingos and people.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for attending this
Thank you.
panel. Thank you for being panelists.
Thank you, Nicola, as well.
Very interesting for me and hopefully for the attendees as well.
Thank you.
Ljudi, ovo je fenomenalno.
Ovo je stvarno bilo, toliko mi je drago što uspio u zadnji moment organizovati ovaj panel, jer sam ja mjesecima nešto one novi, Miljane ne može napraviti šta radi s njim, a odliče priča, da sam ne znam, ajmo. Drago mi je da smo došli, znači, do naš koji išli, jer smo znali da ima ovo sustavljanje Europe, onda smo kajde naći, koje traje, ajmo malo telefonu i sve to.
Baš se moramo Aleksandru javiti da mu se opet zahvalim za komentar, jer je ovo